What's up, guys? DJ here, back with another video. Today we're talking about our top 10 fantasy movies. We're going to be counting down all the way from 10 to 1 with a few honorable mentions at the beginning. I've got my good buddy Austin here, TheDayGhost on YouTube. How you doing, buddy?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Yeah, I didn't know if I should say your last name because I didn't know your last name until like two minutes ago when I called you on Skype, and then I saw your last name. But I don't know. First name basis here. We're good.
Yeah,
We're good
yeah,
friends.
no, it's all good. Funny enough, I went camping last week, and they like messed up my last name on the thing. So when I got like my receipt, they put the first part of my last name as the second part of my first name, 'cause
Oh,
it's hyphenated.
yeah, yeah.
It was very strange.
Wow, they thought your
It's pretty
first
funny.
name was hyphenated? Oh, that's
Yeah,
weird.
yeah, you don't see that very often.
Yeah. But anyway, you ready to talk some fantasy, man?
I'm always ready to talk fantasy. Heck yeah.
All right. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit about how this video came about. Me and Austin were talking in the Discord, and Chronicles of Narnia came up for some reason. And I was talking about how I actually really liked the first one, and then we just started talking about fantasy in general. And I was like, hey, we should talk about fantasy on my new channel because we both love fantasy, and fantasy never gets any love, not even from Hollywood itself. So we're going to talk about it a little
Yeah.
bit. And also, The Green Knight is in theaters, which I really want to see because everyone says it's amazing, and you never hear that about fantasy movies except Lord of the Rings. So hopefully I get a chance to check that out soon. Are you looking forward to that too?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to see it this Sunday.
Oh, awesome.
I thought it was done screening on Thursday this week because it wasn't showing on like the theater website. But I looked again today, and we're good to go. So I'm excited to see it.
Sweet. You sounded very
Hmm.
Christopher Walken-y when you said that for some reason.
It's just default, I guess. My voice just goes into it.
All
But
right.
like when I was making my list, I don't think I have anything past like the early 2000s. Like just sad state for fantasy.
I know it's yeah. We're just gonna get really depressed during this whole video that there's nothing going on anymore. I mean, there is a lot of stuff to go back to. I actually don't feel qualified to do this video because there's so many classics that I haven't seen yet. So this is a very much like at this point in time my favorite fantasy movies because I'm sure it's gonna evolve and change as I see a lot more stuff, and maybe we'll revisit this down the road. One more thing I want to say is we are keeping this to live action this time. We may come back and do one for animation later on, but we just wanted to keep the door open for that, and we'll just stick with live action this time just to keep it on the same page. So hopefully you guys don't rake us over the coals. Otherwise, like, I mean, How to Train Your Dragon would be there, and a lot of other good stuff. I'm sure some Disney would be there. So
Hmm.
don't leave hateful comments. We'll get to it eventually, but today we're just talking live action. But yeah, I'll turn it over to you. You want to go ahead and drop your honorable mentions?
Yeah. So I brainstormed a bunch of movies, and then I ended up they're not on here anymore. But I have a few of them still. Maybe it's just the one I have because there's a few things I just kind of went this and this in my list to like fit them in.
Yeah, I
Uh,
did the same thing. I combined some stuff.
yeah, so I guess the only thing I have on my list, and it's kind of going past the sword and sorcery thing with fantasy, which is quite a bit of my list, which is Jumanji.
Oh yeah, I grew up with Jumanji.
Hmm.
Wait, which one?
Yeah,
Which one?
specifically the original
Okay,
one.
yeah. I was gonna
Yeah.
say I did not grow up with the Kevin Hart, Dwayne the Rock
No,
Johnson
I only
Jumanji.
saw that for the first time last year, actually.
Yeah, yeah. It surprised me how much I didn't hate that movie. I thought I was gonna like absolutely despise it, but no, it's nowhere near anywhere on this list. But yeah, the original Jumanji's cool. Who doesn't like Robin Williams? Creepy though, man. Like watching that as a kid, the his hand gets sucked into the game. Good grief.
Yeah, exactly. It's a thing I noticed with quite a few of my picks, actually, is just how much like weirder and creepier we were able to go in like older movies, especially like in fantasy.
Especially with kids, like that scene where
Hmm.
he's a monkey child and he's like the stampede is coming and he's like in the floorboards of maybe it's just because I'm claustrophobic, but when he's in the floorboards of the car and the elephants are like stomping on the car and he's like stuck down there, I was like, get him out. But I think that's just because I'm
Yeah,
claustrophobic.
exactly.
But anyway,
That's awesome.
so you don't want to mention anything else?
No, that was. I wish I. I don't know why I deleted stuff off my list, but
No, it's no worries. I've got plenty. I've got too much. So
mhm.
we'll
Yeah, and I'm sure you'll probably mention stuff that I had too.
and to so yeah, I'll do my honorable mentions. I tried to. There's some stuff in here that I really really love that would be on my list if I were not trying to keep it to like real fantasy. Like you said with the sword and sorcery, like not all mine sword and sorcery, but I at least try to keep it like more fantasy. So for example, like these three films here, um, the Red Balloon, which I love, is amazing. It's a short film, but it's awesome. It's a Wonderful Life and Shape of Water are all incredible films that are like classified as fantasy, but they're like just dramas with like one element that's
Mhm.
fantastical. So I kept those off the list because all of these would be like at the top of my list because I love all these movies. I obviously, sorry,
Mhm.
obviously, It's a Wonderful Life is incredible, and I really really like Shape of Water when I saw it. But like I said, those are very minimal fantasy movies, so I kept those off.
Mhm.
Something on my list that no one would have on their list, but I grew up with this movie and I love this movie just because it was something I watched as a child with my best friend. His dad showed it to us. Have you seen this Dragonheart?
No, but I really
you
want
need
to because it's
you.
Sean Connery as a
Yes,
dragon.
it's
That's
Sean Connery as
awesome.
a dragon. It is Dennis Quaid as a knight that has slain every dragon, and Sean Connery's the last one, and he's trying to get him. Like, it's insane. Obviously, it is 90s CGI, which if
Mhm.
you're not used to can be rough. But I don't think it's as bad. Maybe it's just because I grew up with it, but I don't think it's as bad as other things that it's like Mortal Kombat where you can't even tell what is happening. It's just like a blob, an
Yeah,
amorphous
exactly.
blob. But I mean, it's a cool dragon. It's a cool dragon design, even if you don't like the animation. But it's a movie I grew up with. It also has Lupin from Harry Potter. He's like the evil king guy. He's a
Oh,
terrifying
interesting.
villain. He's really creepy in this. But yeah, that's fun. And there's like a bunch of sequels that you don't need to see because they're terrible. But just watch that one. Uh,
Yeah, I'm guessing they're probably all like straight to DVD
yes,
sequels
yes, they're
too.
horrible. They're. I mean, it's not their fault. They're horrible. They're straight to DVD movies. But the next
Yeah.
one I have is a kids movie. Well, kind of. It's based on a kid's book, but it's not really a kids movie. It was pretty dark, and it caught me off guard when I saw it. But I really, really enjoyed it. Where the Wild Things Are. Have you seen this?
No, but that was one of the first books I ever read as a kid.
Yes, the book is
Uh,
obviously the book's a classic, and it's not.
mhm.
It's just an outline for this movie because it's you have to the book's like takes like 2 minutes to read, and the movie has to be 2 hours. So it's
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's very different, but it gets really dark. Like the monsters are super creepy, and it's all about like a single mom raising a kid with like struggling with like depression and stuff. Like I started watching it again this last year for on Halloween. I didn't finish it, but the beginning, like I was like, oh man, this is just as good as I remember it. So I do want to come back to this at some point. Maybe this year for Halloween I'll do it because it's kind of got a creepy vibe. But that's a really cool
Hmm.
movie, and it definitely counts as fantasy.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely. Yeah.
this is
Yeah,
a
I'd like to check that out at some point.
yeah. It's interesting. I really liked the music when I was a kid. It's kind of weird. This is obligatory. I had to put this. This probably should be on my list, but I haven't seen it. It's just yeah,
Completely slipped my mind. I forgot to put that on
yeah.
my
So we'll just
list.
talk about this together because obviously everyone's gonna expect this on the list. I love this movie. I just showed this off on the Criterion video I just did with Connor because this release is beautiful. But the
That's a great release. Yeah.
it's awesome. I just haven't seen it enough. I saw it once as a kid and didn't like it. But then I saw it recently with my son, and I was like, okay, I understand why everyone loves this movie. It's great. It's super cheesy and over the top, and it knows that, and it's hilarious. And this is great. It's just not in my top 10, but it's way up there. That's why I had to mention it.
Yeah, well, it's funny. When I was a kid, my dad watched that movie a lot, but for whatever reason, he only watched it when I wasn't around. So I'd be at my mom's and he'd watch it. So my siblings and him, they were like, "Oh, The Princess Bride! It's this wonderful movie." And for years, I was like, "Ah, but I've never seen it." And when I was 13, my mom had a PVR and I recorded it, and I was like, "I'm finally gonna watch this movie." And her husband walks in and he's like, "Why are you recording The Princess Bride? That movie's stupid." And he deletes it.
What? What a jerk!
Yeah, so I didn't see it until like maybe just after high school, yeah. But it's a great movie.
Yeah, it's great. And like I said, I didn't really get a good appreciation for it until I was. Oh, I didn't even tell you. I'm wearing my Canada shirt for you, Austin.
Oh, that's
Austin,
awesome.
the resident Canadian of
I
the
should have had a
YouTubes.
giant like bald eagle shirt.
But yeah, I like that movie, and I'm looking forward to growing up with my son with that movie because I didn't watch it growing up, so I think that'll be a fun one for us to do.
Mm. Are you gonna show him the new remake though, the one they did for Quibi?
No, because he won't know any of the celebrities that are in that by the time he's old enough to understand that. Okay, my next one is maybe off the beaten path, but I really like it. I think I should have looked up where this is from. I think it's either Swedish or Norwegian, but it's called Troll Hunter.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah, I've heard it was really good.
This is really cool. It's a foreign film, obviously. So if you don't like reading subtitles, learn to like reading subtitles because there's a lot of great films you're missing out on. But this is awesome. It is a found footage movie. It's my favorite found footage movie. It's about a hunter who all the kids that are following him think he's a bear hunter, and they're following him because like some people have gone missing or something, and then they find out he's not a bear hunter, he's a troll hunter, and this is such a cool. It's kind of like fairy tale. That was something I had trouble with making this list was finding the line between fairy tale and fantasy, because I kind of wanted to leave the door open to do a fairy tale list down the road. So I will say, one of my favorite movies of all time is Into the Woods, but I consider that completely fairy tale, so I'll save that for a fairy tale list in the future, but I didn't put that on this list. But yeah, Troll Hunter is awesome. It takes all the original fairy tales from like the Norwegian folklore, where like some trolls turn to, and you'll love this because you love Lord of the Rings and Hobbit, but some trolls like turn to stone when they see sunlight, and they like they go in to like talk to this. It's obviously it's fake, but they go in and talk to this scientist. It's made like a documentary, and they talk to this scientist, and she explains it in like this really cool way that makes you think it's real. Like their bones like calcify, like the calcium in their bones like expands, and then they like harden. And then apparently I didn't know this because Tolkien doesn't take this, but in original folklore, some of them turn to stone, but some of them explode. So some of their bones will like spontaneously combust when they see sunlight, and it just like it does that through the whole movie. Like, it explains folklore as if it's 100% scientifically real, and it's totally right up my alley. Like, it's super cool.
That's awesome.
Like, I really liked it. I don't like this cover at all because that's a huge spoiler that there's a giant troll, and it really makes me mad that they put that on the cover. But that's what they got to put on the front to get you in, I guess. Yeah. But don't go in expecting it. It's like a real low budget movie, so there's not that many trolls. Like I said, it's a found footage movie. They kind of hide the trolls, except for at the end when they kind of use their budget on the big one. But it's super cool. Like, the story alone is interesting enough for me in the presentation that I don't care if it's a low budget movie.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of buzz for that when it came out.
Yeah, it's super cool, and I've been hearing that they're going to do an American version forever, like a remake.
Oh no!
I don't really want that to happen at all, but we'll see. We'll see if that happens. I just got two more quick honorable mentions. I know these movies have gone completely down the drain at this point, and they don't probably warrant talking about for most people, but I have good fond memories of this one, so I'm going to bring up Dead Man's Chest. I know the first one's technically the best one, but this one, it just goes freaking bananas, and I always love watching the crazy action set pieces, like the wheel on the island, and the crazy ridiculous stuff that they do on the other island with the savages and the crazy cages that they're climbing up the wall. Like, this movie's insane. It's not like amazing or anything, and they get steadily worse and worse and worse after this one, and the fifth one is horrendous. I couldn't even, I wanted to leave the theater on the fifth one, but I still have fond memories of this one, and I think it's fun. So check it. I mean, everyone saw these movies, so I don't need to tell that anybody.
Gore Verbinski, like with the Pirates movies, is another example of just doing weird stuff in like a fantasy film aimed at kids.
Yeah, no, definitely. The first one freaked me out as a kid. I saw it probably too young, and that first one's pretty creepy. This one definitely gets more into the weird stuff, which I like.
Funny enough, at my middle school, that was the only movie we owned. So anytime we were going to have a movie day, we always watched the first 40 minutes of Dead Man's Chest. So for years, I was like, oh, I can't handle this movie anymore. I can't watch it.
Oh,
And it's
that
only been in the last maybe like five where I'm like, yeah, no, this movie's still awesome. Like
yeah.
I just needed time away from it. Specifically those first 40 minutes.
No, that sucks that it got kind of like overused for you because yeah, that's my favorite of the franchise. I feel like I have to apologize for bringing up Pirates, but I'm glad to know that you like it too. And then my last one.
Oh yeah, don't worry. That'll come up. The second you're like, people are gonna judge me for honorable mentions, I'm like, uh-oh.
No, I'm just trying to get ahead of the comments. I mean, for fantasy movies, you have to have kind of a sliding scale because we just don't
Yeah,
get
of
that
course.
many. And I like to. I mean, fantasy movies are kind of on your list because you love them in spite of themselves. Like,
Mhm.
since we don't have that many quality ones, we have to just love the campy ones. But yet, this one I think is really good. This is my last one of my honorable mentions. This is Thief of Baghdad. I talked to you a little bit about this when I saw it for the first time. This is a movie that I learned about in film class when I was in school, one of my special effects classes, because this is the first movie that used blue screen, and it was a pioneer for a lot of, especially chroma keying and stuff, but a lot of other special effects, and it's incredible. And I just talked about it when I got it for the Criterion video, so I won't talk too much about it. But you especially would like this movie because there's a giant spider fight,
Oh, that's awesome.
which would like it's really really cool. Like except instead of in like a giant cave like Shelob, he's just like hanging on the web, and
Yeah.
it's it's I don't know. It's fun. It's got a giant genie that literally flies around. Like he flies around on the genie's back. There's like obviously flying carpets, and it's based on Arabian Nights.
Hmm.
And it's a really cool movie from 1940. So check that out if you get a chance. I really like that one. I don't know, that one might be on my list someday, but I've only seen it the one time. But that's my
That is
argument.
one thing. I think you're definitely gonna outclass me in terms of like classic Hollywood stuff.
No, that's what I'm saying, man. Like I don't have that much. A lot of these are just stuff I grew up with, and I really
Yeah,
have
that's
like
a lot of my list.
yeah, I have
It's
like a
just
ton
what I grew up
of
with.
emotional attachment to. But there is a lot of fantasy stuff that I haven't checked out yet that I need to because, I mean, I people on YouTube call me like the fantasy guy, but that's just because they don't like fantasy at all, and I kind of like fantasy. I'm not like an expert or anything, so I need to.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I definitely need to educate myself a little more. But yeah, cool. Get that out of the way, and then we'll just start with your number 10. Jump right into it.
Yep. So my number 10 is the first Narnia movie, what we started with
Yeah,
beginning of the video. That's how the video came to be.
yeah, that's what started it all. And then we quickly talked about how the other two are not great, but that first one I think is actually a great film. I like it a lot, and I also did grow up with it, so I don't know how far. I also grew up with the book, so I don't know like how much of it is just me loving that story, or I think it is actually genuinely done pretty well, and I think the CG holds up pretty well. Like that's a pretty good Liam Neeson lion to this
Yeah,
day.
he never really takes me out, and it's weird for like a movie at that time. Like he's not like the Scooby Doo movies where it's like, oh my god.
No, well, in 2005 was like is like a turning point, right? Like there's some
Mhm.
movies from 2005 that still look really good, but then there's movies like right before it, like Spider-Man 2, where like they look like a CG cutscene when they're fighting, when they're like falling and or like onto the train and stuff. But like,
Yeah, even Spider-Man 3 has that in places, and that's two
yeah,
years later.
that's
Yeah.
true. But yeah, 2005 was a good year. But they also did a lot of good stuff with that movie. There's a big mix of digital and practical monsters, like the
Mhm.
Minotaur and the centaurs. Well, obviously their legs aren't, but a lot of the monsters are practical, and then they just kind of mix in the like animals in with it because obviously you can't have
Yeah.
actual animals like tearing each other apart in a battle.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But there's some great costuming in that movie. Like it looks really good.
Yeah, definitely. And like they use actual little person actors for the dwarfs, which I kind of hate that we don't do that anymore, right? Like, I mean, obviously the Lord of the Rings movies look amazing, and they got really good actors to be able to play the hobbits and stuff. But like all those actors that used to get those roles, like in like Willow. I don't know if Willow's going to come up in this list at all, but
I need to watch that movie. I was gonna try to watch it before we did the list or this video, but
Yeah. Oh,
didn't
you
happen.
would love
It's my
Willow, dude. Knowing your
yeah.
sensibilities, Willow.
That's my sister. That's like one of my sister's favorite movies. She talks about it constantly. She is the one person that will probably watch the new Disney Plus Willow reboot.
Oh, I'm gonna watch the crap out of that. That sounds amazing. But yeah, it kind of a bummer that they don't get those roles anymore. But I love that Narnia that did that. And there's just a lot of cool stuff. And we may talk about it later. Who knows? My number 10 is The Journey to the Beginning of Time. It's called Journey to the Beginning of Time. Sorry, this is a set with 3 movies in it, so I didn't want you to think that I was just doing a cop out and saying all of these guys' movies that I've seen.
No, I just had like a giant flashback because I saw that on Amazon a while ago and I almost bought it, and then just for whatever reason, I was like, oh, I'll hold off on this.
Oh, you should definitely check it out. His movies are incredible. So Journey to the Beginning of Time is the oldest one in this set, and I'll talk just briefly about it, just so you can have a visual. It's got dinosaurs, so of course, I love it. The famous scene is the mammoth scene. So as you can see, he's just a really mixed media director. Like that's kind of like a stuffed thing, and then like other parts he uses stop motion in this movie, and then he also uses like life-size models. Like there's an awesome scene where they like come across a dead dinosaur and they like mess with it and like play with it, and it's like just a full-size like dinosaur laying on the ground, like just like
awesome.
Jurassic Park.
Back when we used to do cool stuff like that.
Yeah, well, this is before that. This movie's from 1955. Journey to the Beginning of Time is 1955. Basically, it's just a story about like these 4 boys. These guys. They're just like explorers. They're just like reading like these journals from someone in their like they live. I don't know where they're supposed to live. I think it's in Czechoslovakia because it's a Czech film. But they're just like reading these journals that are kind of like Jules Verne's notes or whatever, and then they just decide to go on this trip down this river, and for some reason, as they go down the river, they just go further back in time. Like that's why it's called Journey to the Beginning of Time. So first they see like some of the later animals like the mammoths, and they go back further and they go back further until they get to like the Jurassic period, and they go all the way back. And I won't spoil what they find at the end because it's kind of cool, but it kind of rides that line between science fiction and fantasy because it's like scientifically accurate the whole time. Like they talk about like he wants a trilobite, like that's the science kid like really wants a trilobite, so that's why they're going back. But and there's just like a lot of it's very scientifically accurate. It's not, but I think the only thing that makes it fantasy is just because they're just rowing a boat down a river and somehow going back in time. There's not really like an explanation for why they're able to do that, but it's just it's a really cool movie that like takes you back to being a kid, like when you were exploring, and that's what you would do. You would just be playing outside, but you would pretend like you were doing all these crazy adventures, but they actually get to do it. Very little dialogue, which kind of helps. There is a dubbed version. I watched the Czech version on Criterion Channel, but I found out afterwards that there actually is a dubbed version, so I haven't watched that one yet. I don't know what that one's like, but there's not that much dialogue anyway, so even if you don't like subtitles, you can check it out. And I love this set from Criterion that Austin was talking about because it's got...
It's a beautiful set, yeah.
So it's got the artwork. I'll also say, really quickly, Invention for Destruction on here is another incredible movie. It's very Jules Verne-esque. Like it's even got like the balloon and the submarine. So it's got the balloon and the submarine where they go underwater, and that's where you can see he uses a lot of the like paper cutout effects and that movie. So the entire movie is made to look like that. It's got like lines through it. It's made to look like an old engraving, like the artwork that was inside Jules Verne's books. So that movie's just stunning on its own. So that's why I kind of put these both together because they're both just awesome, and they'll probably move up my list. Honestly, only reason I have them so low is just because I've only seen them the one time. But I really did like them, and I could see them. They can move it up my list pretty soon. But that's my number 10. Some Karel Zaman movies. Your number 9?
So my number 9 that I have on here is Highlander, but now I'm also wondering if I want to replace it with The Princess Bride, because I forgot about that movie.
Hey, it's your list, man. Whatever you want to do. I mean, we already talked about Princess Bride. You can just kind of talk about Highlander, because I haven't seen this, so sell me on it. Eric tried to get me to watch this. Our friend Eric He
Oh,
likes this
nice.
movie, so
Yeah, Highlander's awesome. It's kind of in a way, just visually, it's kind of like the first Terminator with like a fantasy bent,
mm.
and it goes across time to like ancient Scotland and goes up to modern 80s. And it's just a lot of like sword fighting and stuff. It's very much just like kind of like a schlockier action movie, and Ian does the soundtrack and
Oh
he's
wow.
amazing.
Is it
Yeah.
like Flash?
Oh, it's definitely better. The like main song they open that movie with is my favorite Queen song.
Oh
It's
wow, that's
awesome.
awesome. Yeah, I gotta check out. Like '80s are such a huge blind spot for me. Like you said, it's like Terminator. I haven't even seen Terminator, so like there's so many '80s movies I haven't seen. So I should probably check that out just to get a feel for what fantasy was like at that time.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what you think of it, because I know you're not really big on that period of film, but like just kind of how it is. Like they do some like bigger battle stuff, like people on horses and whatnot, and it's pretty cool.
Cool. Yeah, there's not enough of
Mhm.
that stuff. Like you said, you wanted to keep it to sword and sorcery. Like I had a really hard time keeping it to just sword and sorcery. Like
Oh no, mine
fantasy,
definitely like
yeah.
jumps all
Like
around.
fantasy is hard
Like
to
sword,
find, but sword
sorcery.
and sorcery is even harder. Like I
Yeah,
don't know why it's
exactly.
so hard to get sword and sorcery movies made. Um, but anyway, no, that's cool. Do you know anything about the show? Have you seen that, or you've just seen the movie?
No, I've only seen the first movie. I know the second one is like famously bad, and I've heard the other movies aren't great either. I'd like to check out the show at some point because I've heard it's pretty good.
Cool. All right. Well, yeah, I'll go on to my number eight. My number eight, I kind of did a little cheat thing. I kind of did this a lot on my list just to get more things brought up, but like I'll bring up several things for one number, but this is the same story,
Yeah.
so I'm counting it. My number nine is Jungle Book, and I have two versions here of Jungle Book. I have the 2016 version, which I actually really, really love. This is my favorite. Obviously, I think this is everybody's favorite Disney remake that they've made.
Oh,
Clearly the
absolutely.
best
It's
one.
great.
Completely, change the story, which is what you should do if you go back to these. Go back to the ones that aren't great. Like the first Jungle Book's really fun, but it's not really a story. It's just like a bunch of little vignettes, cartoons.
Yeah, and they tighten it. They take like a essentially a series of skits and
Yeah,
they connect it all into a story. Yeah.
yeah. Like I was so surprised when I saw this, and then the gravitas they brought to it with like the elephants and all of the wolves, like, and the acting. I mean, it's Disney, so the acting talent they're able to fit into this is ridiculous. Obviously, I don't like Scarlett Johansson as Kaw.
She's the weak
I
link.
wish she wasn't here, but that's like she's the director loves her. So, but what
Yeah.
really hurt that for me is I didn't like her the first time I saw it, but then I watched a video on YouTube of the actress who did the dub for the Indian version, and she's amazing. She sounds perfect as Ka, and she's also an American actress too. She's an Indian and American actress.
Oh
So she
no.
should have done it. It would be amazing. I'd love to just get her dub into the into the rest of the movie.
Yeah, 'cause she's easily the weak link of that movie. Like
Yeah, like when she's trying to be all like,
Christopher Walken's awesome. That's like one of the best modern Bill Murray performances.
I know, like
he showed up and was like, "I want to do this movie."
I know. I was blown away by this movie. I mean, obviously we don't have to say it. The visual effects are ridiculous in this movie. So good.
Absolutely.
I mean, but it actually matters in this movie. Like Lion King looks just as good, but it's like nobody cares. It's just animals. This actually has a human in it that we can that we can root for and engage with. But then I'll also bring
Yeah.
up, unless you have something more to say about the 2016 version.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think what helps it too is that the animals are slightly more, not cartoony, but like there is more of like a cartoonish bent.
Oh yeah,
to
there's
them
more
compared to
personality.
The Lion King.
Yeah, they tried to
Yeah.
go full realistic. Like, I mean, Christopher Walken's playing a Gigantopithecus, a freaking extinct ape. That's what we get Bigfoot from. Like, I love that, by the way. The fact that because they added the orangutan into the original art cartoon Jungle Book. He's not in the book
Yep.
because there is
Yeah,
no.
because he's named after the actor.
Yeah, and there is no orangutans in the part of India that this takes place in, and Kipling was very accurate because he actually lived in India for a while when he wrote the book. So like that I understand why they were like, yeah, we should probably get rid of that. Also, that was kind of problematic with like the social issues. But anyway, I love that they just made him a freaking Gigantopithecus. Like he's the last one, and he's just enormous, and I love it so much. So yeah, I really love this movie. This is going back and forth. Like when I saw it in 2016, whoa, I love this movie. I put it like way up high, and I've tried to like temper my love for it a little bit. I haven't gone back to it as much as I would like to, so I'd like to go back and revisit it and see exactly where it falls. But I have it at number 9 here, which is still pretty good on my top 10. But I don't want to mention...
Yeah, it's in my honorable mentions.
Okay, cool.
That was one of the ones I forgot.
But I also want to mention the 1942 version of The Jungle Book, because it is also really, really good in its own way. And the one thing that this has leaps and bounds above this one, I would say, besides Scarlett Johansson, even though he's really, really good, he's still like a non-acting kid. He's not that great of an actor kid. So the kid is kind of the weak point, even though obviously he does amazing. He's acting, it's nothing. So I take nothing away from him. He's incredible. And Sabu, who is Mowgli in this movie, has an advantage because he's much older. That kid's like really young in that movie, which I love that they actually went with a young kid. But this is the 1942 version of The Jungle Book, and Sabu plays him. Sabu is this awesome actor from the late 30s and early 40s who is, I think he's Indian, but he was like this. He was in a lot of these kind of. I haven't seen The Drum yet, but I've seen Elephant Boy, and the kid is amazing. Like he's like 8 years old in this. He's riding an elephant throughout the whole movie. This one he's like wrestling. He's like jumping off cliffs and just like landing on his feet. Like he's like the Tom Cruise of 1940s, man. He's so cool, and he's amazing in this. And there's so many cool practical animals in this. Like there's this giant crocodile that they like literally push through the water. That's like a prop. And there's a giant caw snake that he literally rides, like swims on the back of through the river, and like how they handle the tiger. And this is just a really, really cool movie. I don't know which one I like more, honestly. At this point,
just both good for different reasons.
Yeah, they're totally different things, and I think that's why I'm a proponent of remakes, because I mean it's absolutely different. This one follows the book a lot more closely, which is something that Andy Serkis's movie does, which I haven't finished, so I don't know how great that one is, but
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you've seen that one.
I have not. I started it, but I that was like, I don't know. I was right off of the heels of this one, and I was in not the right headspace to watch one that was like so dark and based on the book. This one is really based on the book, and I had enough time away from it that I could love this one for what it is. So I do want to go back to Andy Serkis's version. But yeah.
Yeah, because that's a movie that I think got ripped apart by critics, but everybody I know that's seen it has been like, oh, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, I like that.
And he does do what you're saying. In that movie, he bases the animals' faces on the actors' faces, so they don't look realistic at all. Like they have human faces on the animals, and that put a lot of people off. But I think that's a cool... I don't know. I think that's a cool way to take it. I mean, they already did the realistic version, so do your own thing. And he felt like you would get some more emotional connection to the animals if they looked more like humans. But so I do want to revisit that.
If anybody knows about that stuff, it's Andy Serkis.
Yeah, seriously. So I do want to check that one out, but definitely check out the 1942 version. It was on HBO Max for the longest time. That's what I saw it on. But it's just a super cool movie. And it's a lot closer to the book. Like so that's the kind of cool thing about 2016 is they didn't look at the book at all. They just like extrapolated, like we said, from the Disney cartoon. In the book, he goes to the Man Village like first act, like, and then stays there long enough to like learn English, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff. And it's actually, if you have the animated version of the Disney film, check out the alternate ending, because they call it an alternate ending in the bonus features, but it's actually like 30 more minutes of movie. Like it's a lot of stuff from the book. Like he goes to the Man Village, he's with the girl for a little while. He meets this guy who's trying to steal there's like a lot of treasure in the monkey temple, and he like gets them to take it to the monkey. There's like an actual plot in the animated one that they just cut out in favor of just like all the little cartoons.
Crazy.
But that's what this movie is. So check out the 1942 version if you want to see what the book's like without actually reading the book. But yeah.
So there is an animated Jungle Book 2 that's better than Jungle Book 2.
Yeah, it's just like that movie would have been an hour and 40 minutes instead of like 80 minutes. But they just, I don't know, Walt Disney decided to cut it all out. But anyway, I've talked about Jungle Book long enough. Check out all the Jungle Books. There's plenty of them.
Yeah, that's the book that's constantly being adapted.
Yeah, justly so. I think it's a great book.
Hmm.
But yeah, what's your number 8?
So mine is a two-parter. It's Clash of the Titans and Jason and the Argonauts.
Oh
So
yeah.
hitting some of that Harryhausen stuff.
I'm terrible. I haven't seen either one of those. But
Oh, I'm surprised because I know you're really big into like the Harryhausen stuff.
yeah, I want like, cause I have the big awesome Blu-ray set that's like super only like 6,000 made, but that's only 3 movies, and the volume 2 is the other 3 movies. That's the one that includes Jason the Argonauts. So I don't want to
Oh,
buy
okay,
it
yeah.
just like a standard Blu-ray. I want to wait till I can get a good deal on that and just have that set. So I've been holding off, and I haven't seen Jason and the Argonauts yet, but I definitely want to. That's obviously what influenced everything after it, including the skeletons in Spy Kids 2,
Oh,
which is not on my list.
yeah.
But yeah, no, talk about these movies because I definitely want to see them, and I haven't. So you're the expert.
Yeah, so like a few of my movies I didn't get a chance to rewatch, but Jason the Argonauts I did, which I'm glad because I think I watched that once as a kid and I was like, this movie's awesome. And then it's just that's always stuck with me, but I never rewatched it. So I'm glad I was able to rewatch that this week.
Oh, that's
But
awesome.
what I like about Clash of the Titans and Jason the Argonauts is that it's that very classic myth thing of it's just okay, you go here, you deal with this thing, and you go there and you deal with that thing, and there's maybe like a loose like plot that kind of connects it all,
Yeah,
but it's mainly just like here's this adventure and like okay now we go here, we go there, we run into skeletons, we run into scorpions, like whatever.
yeah. Well, you'll definitely like Thief of Baghdad then, because that's kind of what it's like. It's definitely like
Hmm.
those movies. Um, but that leads me to like the main problem with why we don't get fantasy these days is they made Clash of the Titans, and it basically is that the 2010 one, just going from thing to thing. But like, why does it suck? I can't explain it. It's like it doesn't have the charm. Is it just the practical effects? Is that the only thing that makes it work, or
I think that's part of it. I mean, if you were to go back in time and ask 12-year-old me, I would have been like, the Clash of the Titans remake is like the best movie of the year.
that's
But
true? Maybe we're just too old at this point. But like you said,
but I
I don't know.
think also they suck the fun out of that movie. Like it's just so much like just darker and just
Oh,
like
yeah, yeah.
like
That's
who
I
cares?
think I said. Did I say Channing? That's not Channing Tatum. That's
No, that's Sam
okay.
Worthington.
That's the less.
Remember when they tried to make him big?
Oh my gosh, that's like the less charismatic potato version of Channing Tatum. Like Sam Worthington.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
And then we got his potato version in Jai Courtney.
And what's his face from Pacific Rim is also kind of like that. Like it's just standard buzz cut white guy. That's just like I don't care about. Like what is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
guy's name?
exactly.
Charlie Dunham? Charlie Hunnam? That's his name. Anyway.
Something like that, Hunnam, I think.
Anyway. So yeah, and is Clash. So Clash of the Titans is kind of like that too. It's kind of the same type deal. That's why you lump them
Hmm.
together.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's they're both that kind of same like mythic like story. Like I know they're not the same story, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah,
Like that same type of movie. And I remember watching the original one as a kid, and that was another movie like Caliban, the one guy that like hunts Perseus in that movie. I was like, wow, my God, this guy's horrifying as a kid. And I bet if I went back to it now, it'd be like, it's just like,
yeah.
just this dude.
Well, I mean, a lot of times when you grow up with it, it still kind of sticks with you. So hopefully you can still have the same
Mhm.
experience. But yeah,
Oh, absolutely. And like the Kraken stuff in that movie's awesome. Like Medusa, all those effects. Like there's just something awesome about stop motion, even if you know it's not real.
yeah, yeah. There's another movie I should have put on this list, which is 1,000,000 years BC. I watched that recently, and that's just a crazy movie about like two cavemen tribes, and they're just like fighting dinosaurs and fighting each other like that I really really like that movie. It's not great, but it's awesome. What is my? I guess I'll go ahead and jump onto my number 8 if you're done with that.
Yeah.
Very late addition to the, like you said, you've been trying to watch some. I really went in with the intention to watch this week because I wanted to make sure if it would be on my list, and it did make it. It's Pan's Labyrinth.
Oh, I wanted to watch that.
Uh,
I've never seen it,
I
but that's funny because it's gonna tie into what my next one's gonna
Okay,
be.
so yeah, I've never seen this. I watched it last night because I'm a horrible. I can't even claim to be a fantasy fan if I haven't seen this. Like I've heard nothing but great things about this, and it's true. It's all true. I watched it last night and it's amazing. I could see it moving up my list eventually, but right now I have it low because I don't feel like I can put it too high because I've only seen it once. So, but it's
Mhm.
awesome. It's everything I love. It does dip into the fairy tale realm a little bit too. It's about a little girl who is like obsessed with fairy tales. She kind of uses that as like an escape from her really really terrible life. She moves out to live with like this army general with her mother because her father died, and they're just kind of at the mercy of this kind of jerk face general guy. And their life kind of sucks, but like she finds this awesome labyrinth in the back with these mythical creatures. The coolest fawn you'll ever see. Sorry, McAvoy, Mr. Tumnus. The fawn in this is really awesome. But this is also a very low, but like you can tell, like the effects are very low budget. But obviously, it's Del Toro. He knows how to work with that. And I was just so engrossed
Mhm.
with the characters that I didn't even care about that stuff. That stuff never really takes me out anyway. Like bad effects never really takes me out, especially if it's a fantasy movie. I'm kind of just like
Yeah.
in the
It's
moment.
bad effects in a movie, I think they're only an issue if you don't care about anything else.
Yeah,
Like I'm willing to let that slide if I'm enjoying the movie. If I'm not, then I'll be like, ah, look at this crappy
yeah. You need
effect.
something to
Like
look
that's just
at.
another issue.
Yeah, if you're not liking anything else, then you just gotta have something to talk about, and you just focus on the effects. But this is a
Yeah.
fantastic. This is like it's Guillermo del Toro. It's just like an incredible movie that just happens to be like fantasy. If you even took the fantasy stuff out, it would still be an incredible movie. And one of the lead actors in this, she is. I just saw her in Y Tu Mamá También a couple weeks ago, and she carries that movie. Her name is Maribel Verdú. She also carries this movie. Like she steals it from the first scene she's in. She's awesome. Yeah, so Maribel Verdú, check her out in those two movies. That's an Alfonso Cuarón movie. This is obviously a Del Toro movie. And then her third movie, her third biggest movie on IMDb, is called Blanca Nieves, which means Snow White in Spanish. It is like it's like black and white silent film, which is a twist on the original Snow White fairy tale that takes place in the 20s, which sounds amazing, and that's like I want to see that so bad because I love she's becoming one of my favorite actresses now, and that's a fairy tale movie, so I need to see that. It's not streaming anywhere, so I'm probably just gonna have to buy it on eBay or something. But she's really cool. She's great in this. All the actors are great in this. So check this out. I know you haven't seen it yet. Check it out. It's really cool. I really liked it.
You know, I wanted to watch that. The big ones I wanted to see that I haven't seen before that I wanted to watch for this were that Labyrinth, Willow, and Conan the Barbarian, and
Yes.
I didn't get
I
any of
haven't.
them.
I've seen Willow, but I haven't seen those other two either. So we're clearly not qualified to do this video. But that's my number 8. Like I said, it could be higher at some point, but it's an incredible movie.
Nice. So mine is also a Del Toro movie. My next one,
Oh, perfect.
but probably not as classy. Mine is Hellboy 2.
Oh, I freaking love Hellboy 2 so much.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one.
No, dude, Hellboy 2 is incredible, man.
I was like, which Hellboy do I do? But Hellboy 2 is like a bit more
Oh yeah.
fantasy-ier. And I don't know, I've always just liked Hellboy 2 more than the first one, honestly.
Oh, I am in 100% agreement with you. The first one is probably more true to the comics. I would imagine. I haven't read the comics, but it's more like about, specifically demons and hell and that kind of
Mhm.
mythology. But I think with the second one, Del Toro just used Hellboy to make a fantasy movie that he wanted to make because it goes like completely in a different direction with like elves and beanstalks, beanstalk creatures, and it's so cool. I love that movie so much.
Yeah, I remember I watched this movie, and it's what got me into Hellboy because that's one of my favorite comic
Oh,
series.
cool.
And I actually think you'd probably really like it, DJ, because it's very like fairy tale-y. Like it's just Mike Mignola is like, oh, look at all these different fairy tales from across the world. I'm gonna kind of take bits and pieces. I'm gonna be like, let's take this fairy tale and let's put Hellboy as a character into it. He does a lot of stuff like that,
Oh, cool.
and
I love that kind of
the
stuff, like
first.
revisionist history, but
Hmm.
with folklore. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And he just mixes a lot of that stuff. The first one, it's weird. It's they're taking elements from the very first arc of Hellboy, but it's still like Del Toro kind of doing his own thing with it.
Okay.
And then, like you said, with the second movie, it's he just does his own thing completely, and I think it works a lot better because like his style and the comics don't exactly fit. I still really like that first movie,
Yeah.
but I'm glad Del Toro was like, okay, I'm gonna do what I want with this. It just works a lot better.
Yeah, that's kind of a win-win situation. It's like if you love Hellboy and you love Del Toro, like whichever way he goes, you're happy. Like I love Del Toro
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly.
Like that second movie with the stuff they do with like tooth fairies and they like reinvent tooth fairies. There's like these horrifying like things that eat your like that's so cool. I love that kind of like flipping them on their head and like I said, revisionist fairy tale stuff.
Mhm.
No,
Yeah,
I
when they go to
love.
the troll market, like that all that
Oh
stuff's really
yes, the
cool.
troll market's incredible. That's like one of the best scenes in any fantasy movie ever. That's in any movie ever. Like I love that scene. Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. It's got like we said earlier, like he's got such a good eye for just the practical effects and costuming.
oh yeah, yeah, and you can definitely see that beginning in Pan's Labyrinth. Like the man's insane. Like he did Blade 2 in 2002, Hellboy in 2004, this in 2006, and then Hellboy 2 in 2008. Like he never sleeps. When does the man sleep? He just made movie after movie, like great movie after great movie. Like man, the guy's awesome. And the sad thing is he hasn't really done anything. Oh, I guess since Shape of Water, like I said, I love Shape of Water. That's one of my favorite
Mhm.
movies. And the way that he reinvents
It's
the
wonderful.
monster movie. He should have been in charge of the Dark Universe. I mean, everyone said that. It's not anything new, but like
Yeah.
he's incredible. But I guess he's kind of taken a step back and he's more producing these days. Like I would have loved to see. I, I don't know. At the time, I was like, no, I don't want to see his Hobbit movie. I want to see Peter Jackson's. But now that it's come out, I think he could have done a really cool. Because they have a lot
Hmm.
in common, honestly. Like if you think of, they both come from like horror. I guess Peter Jackson comes from like more of a campy horror background.
Yeah, like more of like a trashier
Yeah,
Sam
yeah.
Raimi
Which
horror.
and he goes like this is definitely a horror movie. This is a horror fantasy drama. So like maybe he would I don't know. I would have loved to seen it. Now I would love to see it, but like maybe he would have went too far with that kind of stuff because Peter Jackson goes too far with some of that stuff for me in his Tolkien movies. So maybe it wouldn't have been a good fit. Especially because people are complaining about Peter Jackson making The Hobbit too serious. So Del Toro maybe would have made it even more so. But I don't know. I mean, there's some great stuff in Hellboy too. Like the scene where they're singing. What song are they singing?
It's I have it on my phone. I can't
Yeah.
smile without you.
Oh my gosh, that scene is incredible. They're just like drunk and singing that song together. Like that's funny. Like I could see
Yeah.
some dwarfs doing that. Like I don't know.
I wanted to specifically be that
Yeah.
song. Like they're at Bilbo's house and they start singing, I just can't smile without you.
But it would be like the super slowed down where it's like I can't smile. Or that like
He's doing a new Pinocchio movie that I think is this year,
oh, that's
maybe next year.
right.
Yeah, it's that Netflix movie.
I'm so pumped for that
So
actually because one, it's Netflix, so they'll let him do whatever he wants, and two, Pinocchio's a really really dark fairy tale, so it's a perfect fit. Like that's incredible. I completely forgot about that. You just made my night by bringing that up. That's awesome.
yeah, I was just looking at it the other day because I forget what I was looking at, but I just remember seeing it was like Christoph Waltz was like the fox and cat or something like
Oh, okay.
that.
Well,
I was looking at just casting.
a
Yeah.
Pinocchio movie came out last year that I really, really want to see because it got really good reviews and it got like nominated for costume design or something. And like I still haven't seen that one. Like we're the worst. Like we're complaining that there's no fantasy movies, and then when they do come out, we don't even see them. So like we should just put our money where our mouth is because we suck. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, this is why there's no fantasy.
yeah, because nobody sees them. All right, well, no need to be ashamed of your picks because my number 7 is Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Like I said, I really, really love this movie. I think it's very well made. I don't even know who the director is on this. Do you offhand know who the director is?
I don't
A
actually.
Mark Johnson production? I don't know his name right off the bat, but it's beautiful. Like all the snow scenes are incredible in this movie. That last battle is really cool. Like I just love they kind of grounded it in the beginning. Like when I was a kid, I didn't like this part where it was like it starts in like the war and the kids are like getting shuffled off, and it's like super. I know that's part of the book too, but it doesn't actually show it. Like when you see like the World War II in the beginning of this, it's kind of dark, and I didn't like that as a kid. But now I really like how he grounds it first before he gets into the fantasy stuff.
Oh God, this might be this director's only good movie.
I'm sure it is. I don't know.
No, he did the second one. He did. Oh, he's doing a Curious George movie. I thought it was the one that came out a few years ago. And he did the first two Shrek movies. So I guess like depending on how you flow on that.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I can still go back to the first Shrek. I like that movie. Interesting that he has like a fantasy fairy tale type thing. But he clearly has like, or at least the writers have an affinity or like a love for the book, because this is like a really, really good adaptation. Gets to some really dark places, like that scene with, spoiler alert, Aslan's death, with all the demons and everything flying around. Is pretty cool. They lucked out and got like 4 really good child actors in this. Like that's a miracle. Like I think some people don't like Susan because she's just kind of like stoic, stone face. But Lucy I actually find really adorable. Mr. Tumnus, McAvoy is great as Mr. Tumnus, with his like creepy, predatory vibe, but also like this innocent, like goofball. And then when he goes crazy at the end and just starts throwing rocks at people, I'm like, yes, Mr. Tumnus.
Yeah, with how dark it is. I went to see this with my dad and my one brother, and we actually had to leave maybe 2/3 of the way through. I think it was maybe right after Aslan's death.
Yeah, that makes sense.
My brother was like, I can't handle this movie. So we had to leave. And I was like a little bit older, so I was like, like, dang it.
No, yeah.
I was like,
that really makes sense, man. I'm very happy that Disney let them go as far as they did with it. It says PG. I'm actually surprised this got a PG. PG for battle sequences.
I mean, PG doesn't exist outside of like animated kids.
Yeah,
movies.
this is definitely as dark as some of the MCU movies, but for battle sequences and frightening moments. So yeah, I guess that makes sense. But yeah, this is a really good movie. Even if you don't know the book, I think this one stands alone by itself really well. And this is another 2005 movie where the special effects hold up really well, like we talked about earlier. The beavers in this are cool and 100 times less frightening than the BBC. Have you ever seen the BBC like TV Narnia movies? It's just a 6-foot tall guy in a beaver costume, and it's horrifying. He's got like his teeth. We watched it in the library in like 3rd grade, and it's horrifying. Like check those out if you haven't. They actually did all 7 books intended, where we never got that far with these because these kind of go. We kind of talked about this when we first talked about doing this video, but.
Because I've never seen any of the sequels. I've only seen that one.
I should have got those out.
It's all downhill from
the
there.
second one's pretty good. It's not like I don't think it's like a classic like this one is, but it's just, and the third one just kind of is not even a movie because the book is like a vignette film where they just go to different islands and do different adventures, and there's no villain, so trying to make that into a movie is really hard, so I don't really blame them for that. But they brought back the witch from this one, and then the villain is like yellow mist that's like following them around. Like, it's not great, but definitely check this one out. If like Pirates, if the sequels going downhill turned you away from the franchise, at least check out this one because this is the first one. It's the first book that was written, and it's really good. And it's one that I have liked as I've grown up. So, but again, I haven't gone back to it in a while, so I definitely need to do that. But and the score. I haven't even said anything about the score. Harry Gregson Williams, like that, the final battle score that goes over that last battle is awesome. I listened to that. That's actually one that I listened to on my scores and soundtracks list. So score, and that's really good.
I should go and listen to it because I don't remember the score from that movie.
Yes,
but I just need to rewatch that in general.
Yeah, it's real triumphant, and it brings me back to that scene where he's like Phonadia, and he's like charging off the hill, like. It's really cool. But yeah, that's my number 7 for now.
So I think this one is definitely not going to be on your list. My number 6 is Army of Darkness.
You're right about that.
Mention Sam Raimi under the Hellboy thing when we were talking about that. Army of Darkness, I think it's the weakest of that Evil Dead trilogy, but I still like it quite a bit. it's got some like fun fantasy stuff in it, and Bruce Campbell is just awesome, just in general. Um,
Yeah.
Sam Raimi basically remade it into a kids movie with Oz the Great and Powerful. I don't know like how much you like that
I
movie.
hated that movie when I saw it. I did not like that
Oh,
movie at all.
really?
I mean, hated is a strong word, but I really didn't like it.
It seemed to be a very polarizing
Yeah.
movie. Like at the time, I was like, "Oh, this is pretty all right," but like, I knew a lot of people that really hated it. Like I saw it with my mom, and she walked out, and she was like, "That movie sucked. Let's not talk about it on the way home."
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't know what it wanted to be. Like, it was too faithful to the original movie, even though it was trying to do stuff from the later books, but then it didn't even please the fans of the original movie. Like, it should have just picked a lane and went with it.
Yeah,
Um,
that's fair.
but yeah, I didn't like that movie, but I've only seen it the one time. I own it because I like buy every fantasy fairy tale. I used to. I don't do it anymore, but like when I was first getting into collecting movies, I was just like buying all this stuff. And I really and I do like the Wizard of Oz a lot, so I just bought all the Oz stuff. But yeah, so
Yeah.
that's kind of what this is, but horror.
Yeah, so it's kind of like that same basic story of you got this guy who gets stuck in this like fantasy world, and he's sent on a quest, and in that it's to kill the witch. In this it's to get like the Book of Evil, the Necronomicon.
Okay.
Um, but they both lead to like a very similar looking scene where they're in a graveyard. But anyways, Army of Darkness, like he gets the book, releases like the Army of Darkness, this like skeleton army, and he's got to like teach these like medieval knights to fight them.
Oh wow.
And it's a very simple movie, but it's pretty cool, and a lot of the effects are really cool for the time. There's a lot of I think there's some stop motion. Yes, there definitely is at the end with the final fight. You get a lot of just like skeleton puppets that kind of bob up and down. You know,
So how much, like, how much is how different is that than the other two? Because which from what you just said of the three, that sounds like the one I would be most interested in. Like, is it the first one just like teenagers in the woods
so
getting like assaulted by trees and stuff?
yeah, that's like the first like bit in that. Yeah, so the original Evil Dead is just straight up a horror movie,
Okay.
and I like it quite a bit. And then Evil Dead 2 is that the first one but perfected, because one of the big things is it does not work as a trilogy.
Yeah.
Like if you were to watch all three of them, because each movie remakes what came before it. Like that's how each movie
Oh no.
starts. So, and they retcon
It's
everything
like the
each
it's like
time.
the DCEU.
Yeah, because there's a bunch of rights issues. Like I think each movie is made by a different company, so they didn't have the rights to the previous movie when they
Oh.
made the sequels. Um, yeah, so then the second one's like a horror comedy in which it's still got the horror elements, but it's also very like silly and goofy and just off the rails. And then Army of Darkness has no horror to it, like at all. It's just a straight comedy where he goes into this fantasy land.
Is it like still super like over the top gory though?
No, it might be R-rated, but I also feel like it might be PG-13. Like it's like
It's
that.
on the line.
Uh,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah,
Like
no,
there's no
I
real
mean, you're kind of
swearing.
selling me on it. I might check it out because that premise actually sounds more my thing than just like gross out gore, which is not usually my thing. I don't really have a
Yeah,
problem
I
with
think
horror.
there's
Like I
one
said,
like
Pan's
gore
Labyrinth is
scene.
kind of a horror movie, but it's just from the 80s on, I don't like horror movies because in the 80s we're just like, let's see what we can do by stabbing this prop and making stuff fly up. And I'm like, I don't. That's not appealing to me. I don't even have like a weak stomach or anything. I just don't. I don't get the like Psycho. I love is one of my favorite movies ever, and then I watched Psycho 2 and I'm
Yeah.
like, ugh, what are we doing? We're just like cutting people's faces apart. Like it was. Yeah, I don't know. That's just my. That's
Hmm.
just that's
No,
more of the thing
I
that
get
I have
that.
about horror. It's not it's just like gross out horror. Like I like genuinely like on the edge of your seat suspense kind of horror. But no, that sounds interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't even actually know there was a third one, much less didn't know what it was about. So it's
Yeah, no, it's just that. Like there's a sequence where Ash, the main character, he there's like a bunch of little ashes, and it's just like chroma keyed Bruce Campbell running around. and there's like 15 of them just attacking him and beating him up.
Oh,
Like it's very silly.
wow. Yeah, that sounds like it'd be a fun group watch movie.
Yeah, yeah, no, it absolutely is.
Cool. Well, thanks for bringing that up because I didn't know anything about that. It's weird that we've lined up on this one because of what you just said, but my number 6 is Wizard of Oz, the original.
I'll just say then, because you're saying that, that's my next
Okay,
one.
number 5. Okay, yeah, I was up and down with this one. This is not a film I grew up with actually. I never saw it like all the way through. It was like one of those ones that was on. I saw bits and pieces of it, but I never saw it all the way through until like just a few years ago. And I freaking love this movie. It's so cool. It's kind of on the cusp of fairy tale. Like if you read the book, he actually starts Baum actually starts the book with the introduction, and he says he wrote this because he wanted to, because fairy tales' purpose, obviously when they were made. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I got my
He's
Wizard
got
of
his
Oz
background on. It just freaked me out. Look at that. That was a horror movie right there. Look at those eyes. Like the poor Tin Man. That makeup is like giving him chlorine eyes to the 10th degree. But yeah, so he says in his introduction to that he wanted to make a fairy tale because fairy tale's purpose was to teach kids morals and lessons, but now that they have organized schools, they're learning their lessons in school. So he set out to make a fairy tale that has no lesson, that has no moral.
Yeah.
So it's technically a fairy tale, but it's not like a classic fairy tale. It's just kind of a more modern one. But then they go ahead and put the lesson back in because it's a movie, so they change it. And that was always the thing that I was like, I hate when they do that in movies. Like they do it at the end of Alice in Wonderland, the Disney version too, where it's like, it was all a dream the whole time. She just wakes up and she just had a very clearly plotted and well thought out dream somehow, which dreams don't work like that, as we learned in Inception. But I'm okay with it here because it's like it's the first big one where they do it. So I've come around on it, and I really really like this movie. Like the lion is just my favorite thing when he has his courage song at the end, like
I don't got the nerve.
The definition of iconic, right? Like there's not like a scene in this
absolutely.
movie that you can't like I said, I hadn't even seen it all the way through, but I knew like when I finally did, I knew everything because it's so iconic. And repeat viewings.
One of the most iconic villains of all time. Like,
Oh yeah, of course.
just everything.
And
Yeah.
the repeat viewings are great on this because obviously you see everything in the black and white stuff that comes back later. Like literally everything. Like it's such a good script. So well thought out. Really good acting. You got to get into that kind of early Hollywood type of acting where it's kind of like a musical, it's kind of like a stage production. But I love that because I love musicals. So I'm okay with them like just wearing a stage lion costume. Like I'm totally fine with that. I know it might be hard for some people that are used to Liam Neeson as Lan, but I love this movie. I'm really excited. I think I might do this year for Halloween. I think I might do this with my family. Now that there's 4 of us, I might do Scarecrow,
awesome.
and my wife could be Dorothy, and my daughter. We have like a 1-year-old lion costume that we had for my son, and then I got to figure out some way to get my son to be Tin Man, but that'd be really cool. I think that'd be a lot of fun. But yeah, I don't have anything to say about this that hasn't been said. It's a classic for a reason. And it's your number 5, so I'll let you talk about it for a little bit.
Yeah, no, The Wizard of Oz is amazing. It's a beautiful film too.
Oh, yeah.
Just visually, like I know, like the costumes. It's like, yeah, like especially the lion.
Yeah, but that's like
Like,
part
you
of
got to
it.
be more used to that stage thing, like you were saying.
Yeah, like they could have. That's just a design choice. If you don't like it, like they
Yeah,
could have made a more
exactly.
realistic. I mean, obviously there was more realistic prosthetics back in the day, but the prosthetics are still amazing. Like we
Yeah, like
just
the
said.
monkeys look great.
Yeah.
Like
Um,
the Tin Man looks great. The Scarecrow looks awesome.
Oh, the scenes where Scarecrow is like ripped apart and he's just like it's just his head and his body's everywhere, like strewn everywhere. Like that stuff looks awesome, and I can imagine being very terrifying for a child.
I threw my legs over there. My arms over there.
And as we were talking about, Scarecrow just grabs a gun for some reason, like a revolver in the middle. Like when they go back to the witch, he's just like holding a gun. I'm like, why didn't you use that? Why do you have a gun in the middle of this fantasy movie? But like
Yeah, when I hit 13, you hit that age, it was like, why is he not like shooting the monkeys when they show up? I want to see that.
Yeah, but now that it's in like 4K and it looks incredible, you can see that it's just like a little plastic prop gun
Oh,
that
yeah,
would be on.
it's a very silly looking gun.
One thing that always bugged me about this movie is they never they just call him the Tin Man. And like growing up, I was always like, "What is a Tin Man? Why are we just throwing this nomenclature around like a Tin Man is a thing?" Like that's something that just became so iconic that no one questions it anymore. But like in the
Yeah,
book, he's a tin woodsman. Like he's a woodsman that was put in a curse and like was turned to metal. Um,
yeah,
in this, he's just a Tin Man. Like they don't explain his background at all. Like a Tin Man is just a thing somehow, and we're just supposed to roll with it. Like that's really weird. If you watched, have you seen the sci-fi original 3-part miniseries that's called Tin Man?
no,
The Tin Man.
I don't think I've ever heard of
Tin
it.
Man is played by Dum Dum Dugan from Captain America: First Avenger, and the Scarecrow is played by the actors and everything that I can't remember who plays Nightcrawler in X-Men 2. What is his name?
Oh,
Floop.
Alan Cumming?
Yes, he plays the
Or...
Scarecrow and he's great in that. It's a really weird twist on it. Like the the lions are these actual creatures that can like see into the future, and the Tin Man's actually like that's what they call cops in Oz, and then like the Scarecrow's like this weird like dude that's just been like experimented on. His head like opens up and stuff. But anyway, that's like a it's nothing compared to this obviously, but it's fun.
Yeah.
I was in this period where I went and watched like all the different twists on these classic stories. Like they also did the same people also did a Peter Pan one called Neverland, which has Rhys Ifans as Captain Hook, which is really cool. The lizard from Amazing Spider-Man, and then they did an Alice one that was just called Alice, which has the dad from Honey I Shrunk the Kids as like this crazy, insane like
Oh, Rick
no,
Moranis?
sorry, the other dad from across the street,
Oh,
from
okay.
across the yard. Who's in Watchmen? He plays Moloch in Watchmen. But anyway,
Oh, okay,
he's
yeah.
like this crazy knight in that Alice movie who's just like no, like he's like a Don Quixote character where he just thinks things are happening. He's just like throwing. He's hilarious. But those miniseries aren't incredible, but they're kind of fun to watch one time if you like these kind of fairy tale stories told in an updated way. I think actually the Dorothy in that is man, I can't think of names today. Who is the Zoe Deschanel is Dorothy in
Oh,
that
okay,
Tin
yeah.
Man miniseries. But anyway, back to this. This is incredible. I hope I don't have to tell any of you to go see this because if you haven't seen it, what rock have you been
Yeah,
living
what
under?
is wrong with you?
It's an incredible movie. Anything that needs to be said about it has already been said. But also, I will say, if you haven't read the Marvel Comics produced graphic novels of those books, I've got the big omnibus that's like all 6 in one. But it's a really really cool way to read those stories because it's like a
I
really
didn't know they did that.
yeah, it's a really cool adaptation, and the artwork is beautiful, and it's not this, it's an adaptation of the book, which is really cool, and that's a cool way to like read the other books after it if you haven't read those, which I haven't. I've only read the first book, so yeah, I'm excited to get through the rest of those with my kid. I've only read the first one of those comics too. I just got the omnibus like last year, and I haven't dug into it yet, but it's like this huge tome.
They're huge. I have a few of those Marvel omnibuses.
Omnibuses? I think it's
Uh,
technically omnibuses, but that doesn't
I
sound
think
as
it's
cool.
technically, yeah, they're huge.
But yeah, do you have anything else to say about Wizard of Oz?
Um, just like tacking on to like how good that movie looks. You know, just the start of color in films, and just they're definitely really taking advantage of the color in that movie. Everything from like the Emerald City to you get stuff like the horses where they change color and
Yes, the
stuff.
horses. Like, well, I remember when I saw that first time, I immediately looked up, like, how in the world did they do this? Because I think it's like literally painted horses. I don't think it's like a digital effect. Like, they
Yeah,
had several horses that they probably did inhumane things to make them look like that. But it's a beautiful scene. And even the Munchkinland stuff looks incredible.
oh yeah,
Which,
that's that song gets stuck in my head sometimes. The lollipop
yeah,
killer.
we haven't even talked about the music. Like, the music's obviously incredible. Um, I love. I there's a there's like a creepy scene. I don't know if you watched deleted scenes on Wizard of Oz, but there's this creepy scene called the Jitterbug when they're like walking through the woods, and they're like singing the jitterbug, but it's like about an actual monster that's like, you know that scene where they're walking and they're like worried that monsters are gonna happen. There was original like song scene there,
Oh, okay.
which is interesting. But there's also a like reprise where they mix in Ding Dong the Witch is Dead with The Wizard of Oz. That's on the score. I've listened to the soundtrack a lot for this, and it's on there, but they cut it out of the movie, which I kind of bummed about because that's like the big thing about musicals that they always do at the end, where like all the songs like mix together, like at the end of Les Mis when all the songs come together. Like I don't know why they cut it out, but it's a really cool song. Listen to it on the soundtrack because they weave those songs in and out with each other really in a really cool way. So that's a bummer. But I don't think we're gonna get a director's cut at this like 100 years later.
Yeah, probably not. Piggyback off the thing you said though, there are worse that like as a kid some stuff in that movie that I thought was pretty creepy, and looking back on it now it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But like, you know, as a kid, when they, is it like a poppy field or?
Yeah, that is creepy. Where do they just like
Yeah.
pass out? It's
Yeah,
like,
I thought that was pretty creepy. I thought the tree scene was pretty creepy, which is kind of funny now because
yeah.
it's more played for jokes. They're
Yeah.
just like throwing apples at them.
I know it's pretty. It's like you. That's one of those Cobra Kai things where you switch whose side you're on in that situation. Like, why are you throwing apples at them? But yeah, that was definitely creepy to me. My mom was always terrified of the flying monkeys as a kid. I don't know why that is. A lot of people have that, but
I never had that.
I guess I just like monkeys.
The flowers.
Yeah, the flowers are much more creepy. But I just like monkeys anytime I see them. So like, oh, monkeys that can fly. That's amazing. I will say, I just showed my son this last Friday, a week ago, and he was just like the whole time, which was awesome. But he's not even
amazing.
he's about to turn 3. He's not even 3 yet. So I know I'm gonna have to show it to him again because he's not gonna remember anything about it, which is cool because I'll get to have that experience again, showing it to him. But I guess it's back to me because that was your number 5 as well.
Yep,
So
my number 5 is Wizard of Oz.
Look at that. Synergy. Hey guys, I'm going to jump in here at the end really quick and let you know that I'm going to have to split this video into 2 parts. We talked way longer about this topic than I was expecting us to, and just so this video is not insanely long, and so it's a little bit of a more manageable editing job for me, I'm going to stop it right here, but thank you so much for watching. Let us know what you think of our picks. Did we get it right? Did we get it wrong? And what did we leave off? What do we forget? What are your favorite fantasy movies that you would like us to know about? We're always looking for more great movies to watch. So thank you so much for your suggestions, and I will see you next Wednesday for part 2.